Hello all, Janet here. Hello all, Janet here. I wanted to record this training for you because I know a lot of you are going through very painful emotions at the moment: sadness, despair, anger. You know, there's a lot of hurt in this group, as you would expect when, as a mother, you have an adult child who's suddenly not in your life anymore. But have any of you noticed that maybe this isn't the first time you felt sadness or despair or anger? And maybe you might notice when you look back on the arc of your life that, in fact, you have behavior patterns that tend to repeat. Now, it's so easy for us as estranged mothers to blame all our unhappiness on our current situation. But if we're going to be really honest with ourselves, more than likely, it's not so much the current situation that is the cause of our unhappiness. Absolutely, it's going to make us feel bad, but it's not the cause of our unhappiness. It's more like a symptom of something that goes way, way deeper. So what I'm going to do in this training is give you a little glimpse so that you can understand what that something deeper might look like for you. I'm going to share this screen. So I call this situation where, sometimes life feels like it's Groundhog Day, like you notice the same behaviors repeating over and over. Maybe you made a resolution to yourself to give up something like eating too much or drinking too much or working too much, and you find that you keep going back to that old behavior pattern, and it's really hard to get off that hamster wheel that causes you to feel like you're kind of stuck in a holding pattern. I was talking to an estranged mum just last night, and she described it as wading through molasses. That's what her life felt like. Does that resonate for you? Does that sound familiar? So let's just say that all of us, I believe without exception, have a childhood where we endure some kind of trauma or programming. Now, it might be a capital T trauma, like serious abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, having a bullying older sibling, a parent who's maybe physically violent, or a parent who is an alcoholic, or it could be small T trauma. It could be just a tiny thing, or a tiny thing as far as the adult's concerned, but to the child, it feels like something major. So I'm going to share with you my story and then see how you might potentially relate this pattern back to yourself. Not the same story as such, but the way we fall into patterns of behavior. So let's just say that at some point in our life, typically between the ages of 0 to 10, and if you can't remember a specific event, often they're blocked out. We actually can't retrieve the memory for whatever reason. Or you might just need to do a little bit more work. But I think it's fairly, safe to say that probably, most likely, something happened to you in your childhood, and let's call it a crime, which to the adult might sound like a very dramatic word, but for the child, that's kind of what it's like. So for me, the crime was this. Up till the age of 3 years and 9 months, I was a very indulged only child. But I'll never forget the day when I saw my mum and dad pulling up in their white Valiant car, and my mum getting out of the car and carrying this bundle. And I was in the living room, and I noticed as soon as she and my dad walked through the room, all the eyes in the room went from me to this bundle. It was my baby sister. I thought they bought her from a shop. And she was in a bassinet, and they carefully laid the bassinet on the ground. And I just stood there frozen. I didn't realize I was going through a shock, but that's what it was like, frozen, to witness this, what felt like in my tiny life, a catastrophic event. And the feeling was that I wasn't enough to make mummy and daddy happy, that for some reason they had to find a replacement, and that I was left out of the party, that I was left out. And so when something like this happens, that is if you like, a shock to our system, it brings up painful emotions that we haven't experienced before. So we don't know how to process those painful emotions. We don't have names like guilt, shame, fear, sadness, despair, anger. We don't have that vocabulary at this age. All we know is that we feel really bad. So what happens is our inner protector, also known as our shadow, comes up with a solution to try and numb the pain. And how it does that, it numbs the pain by wrapping it up in a story or a belief that makes us make sense of the situation. So I call this the curse, because this story or this belief, which which is programmed into us at a subconscious level, usually we're not aware of it, tends to then drive our behavior for the rest of our lives. So for me, it was this sense of I am left out. In other words, everyone's over there having fun, looking at this baby. I'm stuck here frozen in a state where I can't move, just going, what the hell's going on? And beneath the surface of me, my shadow is saying to me, Janet, you're left out, you know, and this is the thought, I am left out, that I call our core destructive belief. So we talk about limiting beliefs, and we might have thousands of those, but there's one that sits at the bottom of all of them that tends to drive the rest of our behavior. So essentially, there's so much pain in this situation. It actually creates a fear. We call this our core fear. So, you know, the most common types of fear are fear of not having enough, you know, scarcity, fear of not being safe, and fear of rejection. So this clearly for me was fear of rejection. So this thought, every time I had this thought that I'm left out, as a child, would trigger this fear. So think about how this might be operating in your system. A fear is triggered. And then accordingly, we try and overcompensate for that. We try and, if you like, plaster over that fear, numb that fear by becoming someone that we think we need to be that will make the big people like us. Okay. So I call this the self-made prison. This is the area of the overcompensating self. So how does that show up? Well, for a little child, it probably, well, in my case, it showed up as trying to do really well at school, basically becoming Miss Goody Two-Shoes, trying to be the perfect daughter, you know, trying to, you know, get full marks in every exam, trying to be class or being class captain, even putting my hand up to be milk monitor. I mean, I must have been a pain in the ass when I think about it. But it was trying to, I didn't realize, allay this fear of rejection by becoming ultra acceptable. And the problem with this is that we're not actually being true to who we are. So we are developing what we call the inauthentic self. So the inauthentic self is this idea that, you know, I must be perfect, or I am, you know, I'm going to be rejected because I'm left out. Now, the person who's carrying this thought of I'm left out, that's not who I am either, but I think it's my conditioning. It's like a curse that follows me through my life. Now, the problem with when we attach to this identity of the inauthentic self is that instead of the crime being perpetrated on us, we become the perpetrators of the crime. So in my case, you know, I would tend to leave other people out of my life so that I didn't get hurt. Instead of, you know, saying, here I am, guys, I would bury myself in work. And I would use work as like a badge of honor, you know, like, oh, well, no, sorry, I can't meet you for a coffee. I'm just too busy. Or my mum would call and, you know, later on we'd start up an advertising agency. I've run 6 businesses. So I really did become a human doing on steroids. Clearly a workaholic, although I didn't see it at the time. But I used this being busy as a badge of honor. And what that did, it disconnected me from other people. So it further enhanced this feeling of isolation and loneliness. And I thought all the time that I was doing the right thing, being this noble, probably self-righteous person, working so hard, you know, raising the family, all of that. Meanwhile, I didn't realize it, but, you know, I'd numbed myself out to pain and I was basically just sleepwalking my way through life. Now, what happens when we do that is we tend to have a series of wake-up calls. It's just how things seem to work. They might start as a little whisper in your ear, you know, like you know, not getting included in something, feeling bad about that and starting to introspect, going, why do I feel so bad? Or it might be something calamitous. And, you know, that's where estrangement can come in. So for me, the calamity was actually not estrangement. It was losing nearly all of our money in 2008 during the Great Recession. And that plunged me into a state of having post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, watching everything we'd worked for, you know, the last 30 years virtually disappear before my eyes over a period of 12 months. That was my collapse. That was what forced me in the end to go, what the hell is going on? Who am I? And really plunged me into this work. You know, I was determined to work out what is it that makes us tick? Why do we feel so stuck in our lives? Why do we beat ourselves up so much? Why do we blame ourselves for everything? And then, of course, When the estrangement happened at about the same time or just before that, I was blaming myself for that as well. And again, not able to handle the pain of being estranged from my daughter, what did I do? I'd lock myself in my office, you know, just like a prisoner. I created my own solitary confinement cell. So if you're relating to this, if you start to recognize this kind of pattern in your life, just reach out to me, just comment below, just say, yep, I relate. I'm happy to, you know, jump on a call with you and show you what we can do to break this cycle, because this is a cycle. It's transgenerational. I'm sure it was passed down from our parents, and that was passed down to their parents. And this is your opportunity to actually break that cycle once and for all. And who knows, when you break this cycle and actually discover your authentic self, the true you, this is where you find peace. This is where you find happiness. And I believe it's in this space that you're much more likely to reunite with your loved ones when you've become whole. So if this resonates for you, just say, yeah, message me in the comments below. Just say, yeah, I relate, and I'll reach out to you, and we'll take it from there.